Well, the next part of this project is going to be relatively easy, and I wanted to document how I did it. And this is really, you can't make any of this stuff up. I wanted to show what this was all about, though, and how this project evolved, because a lot of the projects that I've worked on in my lifetime, they start out going into the left, then they go to the right, then they go right up the middle. Now, like, as I said before, these projects, they start out one way and they go another way. Well, let me back this up, because we're only about a day or 2 days away from from finalizing this. This is the original part. It's bent, but we don't care. The part that comes with a 750. And you can see what I originally wanted to do, but found out these parts were unavailable from Kawasaki. You can see the height difference of this bar would be up here is about 1.5 inches. Well, what I did is I thought, well, I'm never going to be able to find these parts, and thank you, Luciano, for finding them. And they were the exact price, $137 each from Motorcycle Mall, and there's no discounts at Motorcycle Mall. $137 each, and he got both of them for $12. So that was just a little bit better. Anyway, so I could buy pepperoni pizza for the next week. Anyway, I made these aluminum blocks, which now are going to give me infinite choices. In other words, the choices, I can raise the bars. I have spacers under them already. I can raise them 2 blocks, 3 blocks. I already bought the longer bolts that I'll need. Or I can just, and it's pretty much these blocks on this part, raise it up a similar amount. So I have an infinite amount of choices without spending a lot of money. That's a nice part too. So the other part is, and I have to look at this real careful. I haven't been able to measure it yet, but these, because this bar is bent, but the ones that are on the motorcycle, I have 2 sets of these, are not bent. These, I think, are more parallel. They don't angle down as much, so that would even give you, well, some more. Anyway, which is what I'm trying to accomplish with this whole project. So what I have in essence is a whole project that started out going this way, changed, went this way. In the past, every time I've added, I've got 3 or 4 of these little spacers, 1/4-inch spacers under the bars. I've liked it better. Again, but now I have infinite choices. And what'll happen is I'm going to have to put a longer brake line on, and I have the brake line, that's not a problem. But what's going to happen is I will have pretty much like what I have with the Evil Twin. I'll be able to, hey, I want to lower the bars. I want to raise the bars. Once that brake line is 1.5 inches longer, I can do this whole thing in about 15 minutes. So again, the purpose of this video, I wanted to, and of course this is part of an ongoing project, show where that went and how it went. I'm hoping the bars are gonna fit that are on the bike now, that I can use them. If not, I'll have to buy them from Motorcycle Mall. They'll be $1,000. But anyway, I want to polish these parts up. This is the next step on this. I want to polish these up. Now, anytime I'm dealing with any kind of parts that I need to remove the paint on, there's a lot of ways we could do this. I can go get some paint remover. And that's probably what I'll do right now, is see if I have any paint remover, first of all. Sometimes the least amount of labor is to just brush on paint remover and try to get most of it off. Now, because these are castings, this is going to have to be hand sanded. I can see there's very little of it I can do by machine, but there's going to be little tiny casting flaws in this that have to come out. And then we're going to have to do a couple hours of polishing by the wheel, but always good to see. It's a factory finish, and you can see it's on pretty good. Usually if you paint this with a spray can of paint, you dunk it in a can of acetone, it comes right off. Well, factory finish usually doesn't do that. You usually have to work at getting a factory finish off. Now, if this were something that the person that owned the bike had painted these, this is just ordinary acetone that I use to clean spray gun parts. Only doing this as a demonstration. I may have to go out to the store and buy some paint remover, because what I don't want to do is, if I don't have to, is wire wheel these down. What happens when you wire wheel them down? It leaves a lot of scratches. So choice one is, or I can get my really soft wheel, but then I contaminate the soft wheel It's really for nothing. And it may be that somebody already painted these over the, although it looks like it is the factory finish. Now, there's only two choices. The acetone usually softens it up in a matter of a minute. And if it doesn't, if you don't see it coming off really quick, not a chance. So, okay, choice 2 is acetone's not going to take it off. That means that probably really is a factory baked on urethane finish. We'll try to hit it with some paint remover. Now, they make several types of paint remover. The aircraft paint stripper is usually the strongest. Now, I ought to quit fooling around here, since I know if this doesn't work, I've got a lot of work hand sanding this off. So anyway, this is a relatively mild paint remover. Jasco is not the real terrible stuff. There's some mean stuff that I don't even like to use inside the house, and it stinks to holy heaven too. So anyway, the idea is we want to paint this whole thing with paint remover much as we can, not move the paint stuff around, and without even looking at this, I can tell. Let's see. Oh, show this up close. Without a camera cut, no camera cut. I want to show this. I love doing this. See the way the paint comes off now? Look at that. Now imagine to have to sand that off. Good old Jasco. So when you have a small part like this, one of the things you can do is just put it in a bin. This is an acid flux brush. Better than a paintbrush because it's a little stiffer. And you can just keep brushing that up on there. Now obviously we don't want to let the camera run for 2 hours here while we do this, but I wanted to do it without a camera cut. I always think some of the things you see on reality TV kind of, they condense 4 hours of sanding into 1 minute. You don't really get a feel for how much work went into it. This way you get a feel for if you have parts. Now what this will do, this is going to buy us that these parts will just need a minimum of sanding before we go to the buffing wheel. I think anybody, you don't have to really be a high-tech technician here to figure out that that's probably going to save us a couple hours of work. And look at that. We're right down to, thank you, Jasco. Let's see what we got underneath there. We got beautiful aluminum. So that should be real nice. That should polish up. The ones that are on the bike now are really highly polished, and I want to be able to take the other ones off, plug these on, and do all the other work around it. Hopefully in one day that it isn't really cold out there or snowing, or we don't have an earthquake or a fire or something here. It's been an exciting winter. Yeah, you can see that, and that's worth its weight in gold to see it without a camera cut. That is coming right off. So we'll give that about 5 minutes more to soak, and then I'll take them over to the sink and just rinse with soap and water and SOS. Now, the truth in advertising here is I have tried a lot of other paint removers, and this comes from Lowe's, by the way. And I know Vlad has had some issues. Well, he's tried to remove paint. Some of these paint removers, when you use them on carbon fiber or fiberglass parts or different kind of paints, different kind of primers, you never know what's going to come off and what isn't. But apparently we've lucked out with this, and like I've said before, I'm just letting this soak in. There's still a couple of spots. Now you always wind up having a spot somewhere on here that, well, I guess we're getting it all off. Well, I lied. But that really does make a job easier. Now, and many times I've tried to do this with a metal gas tank, and there's spots that it doesn't come off. And there's spots that and I don't know why, it just gets a better adhesion. The paint dries. They oven dry this stuff in Japan or wherever. Who knows? And who even cares? As long as you can get the paint off ultimately. But this is something that's, if this doesn't take it off, I would say then you have to go to the aircraft stuff. But that aircraft stuff, you better have really good rubber gloves and eye protection. Now, I always try to minimize the amount of time that I let this sit. In other words, I don't want to let this sit overnight. Here's another good trick, by the way. When you're holding these parts, say I want to show this. my hands are relatively clean. I have dishwasher gloves when I get to use the nasty stuff. I don't want to use the nasty stuff now. So I'm always holding it with a plier. And this is the things, when you do this for a lot of years, you realize, oh, let's just make the job as easy as we can. As George Venturini says, mixing concrete is hard enough. You don't have to figure out ways of making it harder. But you can see most of that, I'm down to where there's almost nothing left. One little spot there. That'll probably come right off with the SOS. Bingo bongo bungo. And let's see. Oh yeah, one little spot there and we'll be ready to SOS these. Now, taking paint off parts before you either polish them or repaint them, nothing is worse than when you have a lot, like three layers of finish on something and you want to repaint it, because you never know, once you put the thinner on, and you never know what's going to contaminate what or what's going to delaminate. But if you start down where there's nothing, I think you're always stacking a deck just a little bit better. Now, I'm going to wait till the water gets hot. It's not really critical. Not a big deal either way. Purpose of the video is to show how to strip the paint off of parts, get them down to where you can work on them and polish them. In fact, what I'll do, because the way this is playing out, and I have Miles here all day today, we'll make the polishing of these parts a separate video, but this is always information that, now look what's happening down in the thing here as the water gets into that. And it does make fumes, and so let's make this easier. You can see what's happening. We'll just take this outside. And it's a common thing, everybody that restores old motorcycles, old furniture, old anything, old underwear, it's nice to know how to take the paint off parts. Now, there's always a little bit of residue that stays on there. An ordinary SOS pad, bowl of hot water, warm water. The idea of the SOS, it doesn't put giant deep scratches. Sometimes if you're using wet and dry sandpaper, it can put more scratches than what you'd like to use. Now, because we're going to do on the next video, maybe tomorrow or the day after, depends on, well, we're babysitting every day in this part of the year, but what's going to happen is I want to spend an afternoon polishing these like a mirror. I really want them to look nice when I'm done. So this video, I hope you got some information that you can, anybody working on old bikes, this is good solid information. See, now there's always some that doesn't come off. You got to scrub away at it with the SOS pad, but it'll eventually, and it doesn't really take that long. And that's how I would, let me rinse this off. That's how I would always suggest, if you're going to do a restoration on old parts, the first thing you want to do is get the old finish off. So I hope this little video on how to use paint remover, or how I use it, I should say. This is another part of our project that we're making these risers for our Kawasaki 750. And it's turning out to be a fun project, especially because Luciano got us these parts, which are going to give us infinite ability to raise and lower the handlebars, very little effort. Now on the next video, and I'm planning it out already, probably tomorrow or the next day, what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to take these two risers and put a very high polish on them. And I'll show the little way I do it. I've shown the way I use the paint remover. Seems to work pretty well for me. Hope it works for you. And we have to go get our grandson. What?
You're gonna help me, right?
I'm not gonna help you.
Yes, you are.
This is your job. Are you gonna help me work on motorcycles?
No, yeah.
Yes, I got parts to polish. You gonna polish them?
You gotta help me.
I'm in management. Management doesn't work. Management just watches. I thought I was in management and you were in labor. Am I this backwards? There you go. You're all organized. How much fun is that? Now I get to sit back and just watch you build.
No, you
Like
didn't.
Bob the Builder.
When I was 35.
So I hope you enjoyed sharing a life in the day of Miles's construction and Wendy's projects. And hey, we're gonna polish these up. The baby's not gonna help me. And thanks for watching.